most of you.
The board has been in a work session since 5:30, and we have gone into executive session, and we have reconvened to regular session. And our first item tonight would be the pledge, I believe. I don't want to jump ahead, but
Yeah.
pledge, okay, I'll see it on there. And our next item will be to approve the minutes from the February 8th meeting and the February 22nd meeting. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Ms. Yingling?
Yes.
Ms. Abachi?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. The next item is superintendent's presentations. And Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, well, you can see up on our screen, it kind of gives away where we're going next. But this wonderful athlete is with us this evening, and you're going to hear a little bit of that story. So I'd like to invite up the assistant coach, Coach Toms, if you'd come up and share a little bit about this special athlete tonight. Thanks.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Toms, and I'm the assistant coach for the men's swim team and women's swim team. And I'm here today to introduce Carl Blabaum. I've known Carl since he was 6 years old. He's been swimming for that long as well, too. So this is a far journey for him, and he's still not done yet. If you recognize the last name, it might be because his older sister as well, too, was a state champion. So good for you, Mom and Dad. 2 state champions, 2 swimmers. Carl's a true team leader. For this team, he's only wanted to make our team better. And because of that, ever since he was on the team, we've finished no lower than 5th at our state championships as well, too. We've had countless talks about relays and swims and strategy, things like that. He was always a true player for this team. He was voted our most valuable swimmer, obviously, in 2022. He's a 4-year varsity letter winner, academic All-American as well, too. He's also currently on the USA Junior National team, which he qualified for last summer. He holds 4 school records for us, the 50 fly, 200 fly, 100 backstroke, and his state title in the 100 butterfly as well, too. And I believe he's on all 3 relay records as well, too? Yeah. Correct? All 3 relays as well, too. So really, truly a remarkable career for Carl. In his 100 butterfly, as it says, he not only won it, but he set the state and pool record as well, too. So it's the fastest swim ever witnessed in the 100 butterfly in that historic pool. So quite an accomplishment. I think we have a clip of his swim, and then he can come up and talk about it. So that's his finish. That's, if you know Carl, that's his celebration that he does when he has a great swim. So, ladies and gentlemen, Carl Blabaum.
Hey, Carl, first, did you go so fast that, like, we didn't even see the first part of the swim? Or,
Guess so. Yeah, so it was just a really cool swim. Yeah, he's right. I do get pretty animated after my races, good or bad usually. Hopefully good. Yeah, I was really excited for it, and I knew that. I think we've had 9 straight years of a state champion for Mason, whether it be a relay or a swimmer, and I did not want to be the one to cause it to end, so I went out there and I just did it, and I was really glad to.
awesome.
That is awesome. That's a fantastic reason to step up to the plate, so to speak. Congratulations. Anyone have any words for Carl?
Well, I do. I'd like to first thanks Coach Toms for coming here tonight and giving us a little context, but I feel like we're still selling the whole story short. So can we go back to sophomore year? You swam up at state, correct? Swam in the 100 fly?
Yeah.
And how'd you finish that year?
Sophomore year, finished runner-up, and the guy I lost to was a senior, so I kind of went in junior year expecting to win, and then I kind of got blown out of the water junior year by sophomore, and I was like, I knew that I had to work a lot this year, and I dropped 2 full seconds from my junior year swim to my senior year swim. So yeah, I was definitely amped up to beat the kid that beat me sophomore year or junior year. So
I mean, for everybody, we're all avid swim followers in this room, and we all know going into that junior year meet, I know you had high expectations, and to be, surprised by an underclassman who came in and set the state record as a sophomore, all of a sudden that's kind of like, whoa, I was supposed to be the favorite guy, and that's a moment I feel like for a lot of people in a career that they kind of look in the mirror and be like, well, maybe, this wasn't in the cards for me or not. But for you to, double down on that event, do what it took, and then even coming into this year, I think what you were coming out of districts, you were seated second or third going into the state meet?
Second into state meet, but at prelims I placed 4th. But I was holding back a little bit.
I was going to say, going into that final heat, people are following the times. They're thinking, oh, Carl's he's sort of drifting into the finish of the twilight of the career here. He's given it all he has, and then you come out of that 4th place prelim finish to set the state and the pool record. That's awesome. That's a very historic pool up there. A lot of very famous names have set the pool record up there.
Yep, thank you.
Was that sophomore, just curious, that sophomore present for this race as well? Now
Yeah,
junior?
he was the guy that I outtouched by I think 0.2 seconds. Yeah, he was 2 lanes below me in lane 4. So yeah,
You both lowered the previous state record there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Were you both under the pool record then?
Yes, yeah, because I think it was 46.00 and he went 45.9. So yeah.
Nice.
Carl, I assume you're swimming in college? Where are you
Yes.
going to go?
Virginia Tech.
Have you decided your major?
Major? Probably chemical engineering.
Anyone else?
Calories per day.
I don't know my CPD, but
I see mom and dad back there going like,
decent amount.
A grocery bill right now is through the roof.
glad to pass that off to Virginia Tech. That's all you.
That's funny.
Great
Well,
job, mom and dad.
I just want to add, that I often remind some of our coaches that we don't put these programs out for them and our students to win state championships. We celebrate them, we're excited by them, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is, as Charles just laid out, to put young men and women like you into a position with this exceptional talent to learn what you can do with it. And the mental toughness, the resiliency, the teamwork, and all those things that go along with that. And so that's why we celebrate it. We celebrate your state championship. I wish I could splash the water that cool, but we really celebrate it because you got a chance to build yourself in the process. And as a community, that's why we put these experiences together. And, we're big fans of the Manta Rays and the partnership there, and we love how our students go back and forth. And so great to have that swimming culture here, but it's to do things like you experience. It's to take a kid that swims in the 20th spot to figure out how to get to the 15th spot, and all those lessons are why we do it. And so thanks for being a representative of that, and thanks to your parents, because I know there's a few sports that never happen without parents, and one of those is swim parents. And so thank you guys for that, not only for Carl, but for the whole family, and we appreciate everything you've done.
Yeah, Mason Swimming did a lot for me, so try to do something for them.
That's great.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Congratulations, Carl.
Thank you.
Well, you won't get away quite that easily. I think you need to come on back down, and we'd like to shake your hand, have a little something for you. And Tracy will want her dutiful picture, as she always.
Start with that.
Come on up.
Congratulations, good job. Thank you. Where would you like us, Tracy? There we go, yeah. Come on, go ahead.
This is the closest we get to a state championship.
I do love that picture of you. It's amazing. The pure joy and that video. Congratulations.
Coach Thomas? That's okay. Okay, Jonathan, are you ready for your next item?
Great.
Presentation, thank you very much. This is a special one, as the last was special, but this one has some history to it that,
Yeah, standing at the podium after a state champion, Olympic swimmer, you know, it's always a nice thing to come follow up behind. But it's such an exciting thing to see our kids do amazing things. And so hopefully this next presentation just continues to support and echo the quality that you see here at Mason City Schools and some of the things that are going on and the opportunities that our kids get to participate in. So tonight, it's my pleasure to start and kick off this presentation. You know, we talk a lot about Mason moments in the district, and moments are made also of milestones. And there is a one we want to stop and press pause for just a second tonight to honor. And we have people here that are our special guests, our honorary guests that have been either former administrators or former board members and other partners in our community. And so at the end, if you're a former board member or administrator, we will ask you to think about possibly sharing a Mason moment that really solidified what Mason quality meant for you. So I'm just planting that in your mind ahead of time so you could be thinking. When we also, and tonight I'm going to have Kevin Wise go ahead and kick us off and share a little bit of the history that's led us to this moment, and then we'll bring some other speakers up.
Well, this is the first time I've been on this side of the podium in 20 years. So, first I'd like to echo what Jonathan said. You know, what we want to just talk about tonight is the value of long-term planning. A lot of times government doesn't get a chance to get into a lot of long-term planning because there's short cycles and attention spans are kind of maybe misplaced. And so all the great things that are promises that are made in elections often kind of disappear because nobody stays around long enough to see them through. But we're very fortunate in our community to have had a long continuity of leadership, and both in our community, our administrators, and board members of the school district. And so we're going to mark the moment tonight where we're going to see one of the benefits of that long-term commitment. And so a couple things that kind of underpin that is the decision to go with one high school in a community. That was a moment back in the late 90s that set the stage for 2 decades where we are today. Decisions to focus on grade level buildings that gave us a kind of flexibility to manage explosive growth that the district dealt with in the early part of the 2000s. And then some foresight of managing a shrinking footprint to kind of match those facilities to our actual student growth. And to the point today where we have the most efficient school district in the state in terms of cost structure and our ability to offer services that are unique and contribute to the kind of quality that we want to have for the most part been delivered by that. And so we can only do one thing in this moment. My job is one thing, and that's to recognize and to thank some people. So I'm going to do that. First of all, we couldn't do this without continuity of top-notch administrators. And really this time span that we're talking about is about 25 years or so. Goes back to Kevin Bright, who started as assistant superintendent in some of these early decisions. And also, importantly, Dick Gardner. Kevin couldn't be here. He sent us a nice note. But we couldn't do this without recognizing Dick Gardner, who was our treasurer for almost 20 years, I think. Dick was the architect of most of this. And we have Dick's family here, Mary and Kate. And why don't you introduce them?
So Kate Gardner, I'm Smith, I'm his dad's oldest. I'm gonna stumble over this. My husband Jeff, our daughter Ash, who's a sophomore here at Mason, and Drew, who's a senior.
All right. So Kate, Jeff, Ash, and Drew, thank you for being here. And Mary, we consider you, a part of this district all the time and feel his impact every day. So it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're really glad you're here. And then I'll kind of keep going. I'm going to stick to administrators here, but we have Dr. Kiss Klein, Dr. Gail Kiss Klein. Gail had maybe one of the toughest paths because she came to us right after a levy didn't pass, and she was a big part of the architect with Dick to figure out what to do after that and maintain the quality that we wanted to deliver, but do it in a more cost-effective way. So many difficult decisions that we went through together during that time, and we really appreciate that leadership, and we wouldn't be marking this moment without you here as well. So.
Support of the board helped make those decisions.
Wow. So thank you for being here. And then I want to just kind of take a moment then to recognize Matt Nolan. Matt is our county treasurer, or county auditor. And in the last few years, Matt has been very instrumental in helping us navigate some of the nuances of how to handle levies, both operating levies and bond levies. And he's just done it with such an amazing amount of grace, but also just competence. It is awesome to have an auditor in Lebanon who can help us through these kind of things when we're dealing with this kind of opportunity that we wanted to do. So, Matt, we want to thank you and your staff for your help as we went through our last round of levies for sure. But your guidance is really important, and it's really in the spirit of this long-term planning. So we thank you for what you do and for being here. So.
I actually got a lot of training from Mr. Gardner. When I came in, he was the school treasurer.
Right.
Everybody was Dick, and really taught me to be a leader.
Yeah, that's good. And we also couldn't do this without volunteers in our community. So Casey Moran and both Casey and Lena Patel are, I'll call them consummate volunteers on just about every front. I call them table managers because they're behind every table that people are coming up to do something with, whether it's sell Girl Scout cookies, raise money for something, get a petition signed for the umpteenth time, whatever it is. These are two representatives of a group of people that just have gone above and beyond and allowed us to do the kind of things and gain the kind of community support that we've needed to. So we want to thank both of you for being here and for your teams of others that you've worked with. We really appreciate all of those volunteers. So thank you guys for being here. Yeah. So that leaves us with a few board members. And I don't want to I'm going to go in chronological order from most current to longest gone by. So we'll start with Matt Steele. Matt served for 8 years along with Gail all those years and helped us manage most of these changes that we're talking about tonight. And so brought a lot of continuity, a lot of wisdom. It was just a pleasure to serve with you, Matt. So we're glad you're here today to mark this moment as well. Courtney Allen. Courtney served 8 years as well. She was a person that actually served as a levy chair for the levy that didn't pass. And just like Carl losing his junior year, she doubled down and served 8 years on the school board to make it right. And I've said many times, you're one of the best that I served with on so many fronts. You brought a lot of experience that that was just, I know Todd felt it, past operations leaders felt it, your understanding of facilities, but your perspective as a parent and your overall just kind of business demeanor brought a lot to us, and it really enabled a lot of this. So thank you for being here. And then, Mary Ann. Mary Ann Culbertson, no, and I wouldn't, even if you were, I wouldn't make that mistake. But Mary Ann was on the board when I joined. She and Connie have served a long time together, and not only was she, I mean, she had a hand in all of the buildings that today exist, and not only a hand in building those, but dealing with all the funding issues that we've dealt with, choosing how we finance some of the buildings, and those were difficult decisions that we had to deal with back then, and you before me even, but setting the stage for a lot of this, we couldn't have this moment without you. And so if there is an opportunity to mark this moment, we would not have missed it. So thank you for everything you've done over the years, Mary Ann. And then the man I call Mr. President, because he was the president when I was, back when I was young. And Dave was served for 8 years, is that right? 12 years. And was probably the most tuned in community board member I've seen since, or maybe it was here before, but such a sense of this community. Again, with Mary Ann, was an architect for most of the foundation, the buildings that we have today, including the community center, Mary Ann as well. I don't want to miss that. But he is also just the most no-nonsense board member we've had. And it was tough to get anything by him. I know if you were a superintendent and you worked for Dave, it was, yeah, he knew what was happening and had a way of communicating that. It's most unique that I've ever seen. And so, but Dave, this all wouldn't be here without you either. So we can't mark this moment without thanking you and all you've done. And now you've been gone for, I don't know how many years, 8 from Mason, you said?
Well, I don't even live in the district anymore. We couldn't afford the taxes.
See what I mean? Right? Yeah.
We saddled the community with a couple $100 million in debt, and then of course I did the right thing and cut rent as soon as I could. Now we're just over in Mainville, and we downsized. And, in fact, I worked in the community center for 12 years.
Right.
Physical therapy clinic there.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Well, I knew it was going to take a few minutes, but I wanted to recognize each of you and thank you for being here. We made a commitment on April 28th of 2020, which was rescheduled for March 17th of 2020 with the last levy. And today we're going to have an opportunity to kind of mark that moment, but also recognize the ability to mark that moment is because of the way we set this district up, and the financial future of this district for generations to come will benefit from this. And I want to end on a story. My first meeting as a board member was in the MI Kiva. Remember we used to meet over there? And I got there, I was all nervous and prepped, and a woman about 10, 15 minutes into the meeting, can't remember what we were talking about, stood up in the back of the room and said, "This is the most boring meeting I have ever attended." And she stormed out. And I was kind of startled, because I was like kind of energized by it. But that's the kind of stuff. It's not the things that most people think school districts deal with every day that make it great. It's the foundation that you lay. It's sometimes boring, but it's very important. And so that woman, by the way, I got to know her well, and she still jokes about it, and she does say it was a pretty boring meeting. But I thank you for all those boring meetings that we sat through to get to this point and to be able to mark this moment. So we can't end, though, without an appreciation of this current board, because, one of the things that has a the continuity that we've been able to establish is what's important. And so each of you served with different people. This group is our newest group. It's off to a great start, and we appreciate each of you as well. And I appreciate working with you. But today we're going to get a chance to thank them and mark this moment. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sean and talk about some of the things we're going to mark. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. It is a real honor to be up here and be able to talk about some of the things that have taken place in the district here over the last couple of years, and to recognize the people that were part of that journey for so many years. And so what I wanted to do was take a minute to look back at the 2020 operating levy and talk a little bit more about just a reminder of what that levy was. And so, going back 5 years, Mr. Wise mentioned the 2010 levy that didn't pass, and there was a lot of changes after that. And remarkably, the district was able to go another 10 years without being back on the ballot, thanks to, again, to a lot of people in this room. But coming up on 2020, we knew there was a need for additional operating funds. And so because of the long-term planning that we had benefited from in the district, we're able to structure this levy in a way that there was actually two parts to it. And so part one was a 4.71 mil levy, costing taxpayers a little bit less than $14 per month per $100,000 of value. The taxpayers did see an increase from that, but the second part of the levy was initial 5.25 mils, but they did not see an increase from that because of the way that these things were structured. And so this building that we're sitting in right now, the original high school was paid off actually December of last year. And so in 2021, the first phase went on. In 2022, here we are in the second phase. The bond millage dropped off. The new operating millage came on, and so that was basically a flat, basically no increase from that. So you see up here on this graph, there were plans that we had talked about. There were things that we had anticipated and hoped for, and as we sit here today, we can actually no longer say these are things we're anticipating or planning for. This is actually what happened. And so as you look at the average $300,000 home in Mason, you can see from 2020 to 2021, that increase of 4.71 mils on a $300,000 home. And then from 2021 to 2022, that flat line in that second year. And so we're privileged to be able to say that the things that we hoped for and planned for and thought of and carefully mapped out, those things actually did happen. Now, I will finish this with one caveat and say this is for the average home. If it increased the same as everybody else, as the average home in the county or in the district, if you had a home that increased more than the average, you might have seen a slight uptick in that second year. If you had a home that increased less than the average, you might have actually seen a small decrease in that second year. But caveat mentioned, just that this is for the average home. And again, Mr. Wise stole some of my thunder here in thanking our county auditor, Matt Nolan, but did want to appreciate him. That every public school district belongs to their community. And one of the things that's important about having a school district and a partnership with a community is trust. And a huge part of building trust is making sure that the things that you say are going to happen actually do happen. And I'm happy to say that in working with Matt Nolan for a few years, he's definitely a man of integrity, and he's a truth teller, whether it's good or bad. You're going to get the truth from Matt, and so we greatly appreciate that. And so whether it's a school district and working with him on planning for different things, or whether it's a community member calling in saying, here's what my home value is, or here's what I'm anticipating, can you give me the truth on this? We know that for sure Matt will always give you the truth. So whether it's good or bad, we appreciate that about him, and that's something that's a foundation you can build a relationship and trust on in a school district. So thank you.
A couple last notes here before we give our former administrators and board members a chance to share maybe a Mason moment that solidified Mason quality for them. You see here on this, and you've probably been used to when it comes to voting season, hitting your phone and clicking and updating and updating and updating to see the charts go. We've all been there during that season. And I just want to again thank our community for trusting us. If you remember, Kevin mentioned this, the day that the vote was to take place in our community across the state, they shut down voting for the first time in history, to my knowledge. and moved the finish line. And that, for a group of volunteers in our community that have done such amazing work, and you heard Lena and Casey mention today, and there is Kirsten and David as part of that, just that community volunteer group that's just sharing our story, informing voters on how to think about an intelligent vote, and then to move that, and to be heading directly into a global pandemic in which we didn't know what was going on, and we closed schools around that same date, and then to come back together and to show this kind of support for our district just means the world to us, and it's allowed us to continue to build the Mason momentum and the Mason quality that we have promised. So everything you've heard tonight is what we've built that upon, and all the leadership that has led us to this point we're so grateful for, and then the support of our community to propel us into the future. So I want to show a slide here. This is one of the slides that we had a slide deck that we were sharing with our community during the time that we were considering moving forward and asking for some further financial investment from our community. And this was one of those slides that says, well, what happens if the levy passes? Because there was a lot of conversation about what happens if it doesn't, and that's a difficult conversation. So I just want to highlight that we have been able to continue to invest in these very things, just like we said we would to our community. We heard that safety and mental wellness was important. We've built an entire safety and wellness team, and then we're continuing to look at that. We're actually looking at adding an additional layer to our support now, because what we've also noticed is that there's actually behaviors not just here in Mason City School, but across the country that have actually started to come out of the last 2 years. We knew there were some concerns with mental health, but some of the intensity of behaviors is more than we've ever seen before. So we're building an extra layer of support into our buildings, and that's an investment that we're making to stay true to this. Also, looking at the current staffing levels and trying to make sure that we can continue to do the things that we do with personalized learning. So we were able to retain and keep the staff that we were hoping to keep during that. So this commitment allowed us to continue to do that and keep quality staff. So it's just not about keeping staff, but it's about getting quality staff to come to us. And that's something that we've been trying to do always, and having the highest quality instructors and staff around our kids. And that's allowed us to continue to retain as well. And then our AP courses, the STEAM classes, one of the things that we've tried to always do is offer all of our kids STEAM opportunities all the way through our district. We've been able to continue to expand those opportunities in our middle school and high schools through some new course selection. And we just went through course selections and able to continue to offer rigorous and relevant courses for our students. And so that's something we've been able to continue to use the investment to move forward with Mason quality. And then also targeted class sizes and reductions. One of the things that we've tried to help with when we've worked with our teachers is saying, what is the ideal class size? And we've been able to look at that and try to stay true to our commitments to our teachers. And we've drawn those class sizes down over the last 4 years and class loads to a level that is where we wanted to be in alignment with our staff. So that's something we've been able to continue to do because of the investment of our community. And then finally, the extracurricular choices. One of the things that we believe in when it comes to mental health and the well-being and happiness of our kids is that they're connected. Whether it's Carl being connected to swimming that you heard earlier, and him and having the moments where he can just pound the water and be excited. We want all of our kids to have those moments. And what are those moments for every kid is different. And it might have been, I was just at the middle school play the other day. It was the first one we've had since COVID. And for the middle school, because their play got shut down as well. And it was a musical that was just wonderful. It was off the hook, amazing. You couldn't believe you're at a middle school production. It was amazing. But those are the moments that we want to continue to create for all of our kids. The more connected our kids are, the healthier they'll be. So that commitment has allowed us to keep that. And then finally, I'll just leave you with this, is we have really set out to be bold in the future. And that bold journey ahead is only because of what has been done ahead of us. So I give credit to all the superintendents and the treasurers, all the administrators, all of the board members that have supported the work all the way up until they've set us up to be bold, to think bold, to be creative. You know, if you didn't have all that foundation, you wouldn't be able to think about the things that we are. So as we look ahead, I encourage anyone that's watching, because I'm sure there's quite a few watchers and viewers out there online, I would encourage you to lean in and to get involved In the next 10 months, we will be engaging our community in creative and innovative ways to begin to look at where do we want to go in 2030? Who do we want to be when we stand there in 2030 and say, this is us? What is Mason quality, and defining that together as a community so that we can stay true and honor our community. All right, at this time, like I said I would do, if you are a former board member or a former administrator and you'd like to step up and just share the Mason moment that really solidified what Mason quality is for you, we would love to invite you to share. So you're welcome to come up, anyone that would like to share, or you can stay in your seat. That's perfectly fine. I think they can still hear you
Yeah.
through the...
As long as it,
Never miss the opportunity.
And it will help our online viewers, so thanks for... Yes.
We are on TV now, you know.
yeah. That was another big change from this one.
Thank you for inviting all of us tonight. It really was a special moment, and really great to reflect back on all the years that we've been involved in making this the district that it is today. And I'm just so proud of it. And I think the moment that, or moments that I would share that kind of encapsulize what the district truly meant to me and what I strived for was excellence for our kids. And it was my family's privilege to have both of our daughters, Shannon and Molly, go to school here from kindergarten and graduate. It was my honor to hand each of them their diplomas. Actually, they both married Mason grads, so I actually handed their husbands their diplomas, though we didn't know that at the time. And they gained so much from the education that was provided by this community. They both did well in school, have great jobs, and both families have elected to stay in Mason. And I think that's a real tribute to this community, that you grow up in Mason and you want to come back and stay here. They both went out of state for college, but they make their home here in the school district today. And we also have 3 grandchildren, and one in kindergarten and one in 2nd grade at MECC. So I didn't graduate from Mason as many previous board members did, but we're Comets through and through. And it's just been an amazing ride. Thank you.
Mary Ann, while Dave's coming to the podium, I know looking back, one of your primary efforts was on the focus of the rigor and the quality of the education that we wanted to provide to our kids. And you were one of the primary reasons that we pushed for more AP classes, National Merit Scholars. And I thank you personally for that direction from you specifically on the board. You're welcome. Mr. Leonard.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. I have not been in this room in quite a few years. The last time I was here, I had a lot of hair and it wasn't gray, but it's great to be back here, so I appreciate it. I was served on the board 12 years. Like Mary Ann, both of our children went to Mason schools. They graduated from here. They went on to college and both have incredible careers. And they would both tell you that the reason that they are where they probably are right now is because of their education that they got in Mason, and their dad probably as well, pushing them along the way. But very, very proud of our children and everything they've done. And I'm looking back and thinking about when we started this project for the community center in the school district and the high school. This was actually the brainchild, believe it or not, of Jim Voris, who was the architect for this. the board started talking. We purchased land way out in Doc Batchy's property, way out of town. And people thought we were nuts to purchase land that far out, just as back in the old days when they bought the land to put Western Row on. People thought that was the dumbest thing in the history of Mason. Who would drive all the way down to Western Row to go to school? So it was a very, very small farming community back in those days. But a couple of things that happened along the way is Jim came to a board meeting as our architect, and we were kind of just beginning the transition to we're going to go to one high school or two. And we had athletic facilities at the middle school that were like none other in the state at that time, with between that stadium outside and between our the gym at the middle school. And Jim Boris is like, well, why would you want to duplicate all that? We don't need to do that. Why don't we build one great big community high school and a community center? And we thought that, well, that's a great idea. And then we've come to find out that the land that the community center sits on now was not owned by the city of Mason. It was owned by Mrs. Westerkamp, who owned the property, has the farm right up here. And she had a sister in Canada. And they weren't keen about all the growth going on in Mason at the time. And we were having a very difficult time because we needed the land next to the middle school in order to be able to build the high school and the community center. So we got bogged down on that, and Mary Ann, if it wasn't for her, none of this would have happened. She just, on a whim, on her own, went out, knocked on Mrs. Westerkamp's door. They had a woman-to-woman wonderful talk, and Mary Ann was able to get her and her sister to agree to a land swap, a complete quick land swap that gave us the additional 30 or 35 acres that we needed to complete and put this building on the footprint that it's on now. So had Mary Ann not done that, and just, you know, we were bogged down. We thought, there's no way this can happen. We're going to end up out on Doc Batchy's property. And it worked out. And we were also very, very fortunate at the time that we had a school administration that allowed the board members a lot of leeway and a lot of accepting us being in their business on a daily basis. And we were, just because of the scope of this project. I have to mention Eric Cantor. Eric was a four-year board member only, but his gift as an incredibly gifted contract attorney. He was the lead contract attorney for General Electric aircraft engines. Him, Eric, Dick Gardner, and our bond counsel and our attorney at the time were masterful at working these contracts for the land swap and everything else that we needed to do. Without Eric's input, this would have been very, very difficult. Connie and Mary Ann, extremely involved in the footprint also of all this. I was heavily involved in every construction meeting that occurred. The superintendent, the treasurer at the time, everybody was very, very welcoming for all of our input. And there was, I can't even count the number of daytime meetings that we had away from work that we were all allowed to be down here and to get this done. So we were, all we did was build buildings for the 12 years I was on the board. 750 new kids a year for 10 straight years. And when I started on the board, we had 32 buses in our fleet. When I got off, we had about 140. If that gives you any idea of where we were at the time. So, but we had a great administration. We had a fantastic Board of Education. We had a lot of very, very good involvement with our community. We always sought community involvement, and I know you're continuing to do that today. That groundwork was set when David Lewis was the superintendent. We hired a very, very competent individual to run our community forums, and we had an old guy by the name of Dick Kroc who did nothing but worked our numbers for us. Dick went to Dave Lewis and Kevin Bright and said, you know what, I can help you guys figure out how many kids are going to come. He actually went up to the county and started counting the number of live births that were happening in the Mason City School District and figuring out how many kids are going to be coming down the pike. And so that's how all this started and where we ended up. And I would say his projections were spot on from the time that we peaked until the curve started to go down. So just my Mason moment is just being able to be a part of this system, be a part of the school district, being elected by the voters 3 times to serve the community, and it was a pleasure of my life to be able to do that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Dave, while we wait on Courtney to come down, I remember that you were a wealth of information of all kinds relating to the development and the construction and the projections. And your relationship with Jim and Alvarez, you're still giving back to the community by, you let us pick your mind. At the Chronicle, a student recently did an article on Alvarez and the history that he played in our schools. So thank you very much for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Courtney?
So I have to say that my first Mason moment, I have many of them. Hard to choose, but obviously my first one was as having a child come into the district. You know, we had moved here because of the school system, but our first experience really solidified why. And I think from that point on, every touch I've had with the school district, the people have impressed me. I know, talked about trust and building relationships, and as I look around the room at every person that I have served or worked with in here, I trust them. I trust that my kids going here are getting the best education, not just in the classroom, but in the development of them as a person. So the Mason moments continue. I could go on and on and on with each and every one through the, gosh, how many, my third kid is about to graduate from here. So it's been a lot of years, but every single one of those moments I can say and look and be honest with everybody and saying that we have great people here, we have people we can trust, and as you can see from the success over the years, Mason is just a great place to be. I appreciated serving.
Thank you, Courtney. We really appreciate the time that you spent on the board, and I remember as you came in and in your early years all the way through to the end, you were one of the best examples, as Kevin has mentioned, of leadership on this board, and we thank you for that. Steele?
So like Courtney, I could probably share lots of Mason moments, but the defining one for me around the finances was probably coming in and having a colleague friend say, "You're recommending closing a building? You haven't even been there a year." And I thought, yeah, that takes a lot of trust of the board and support to be able to make those courageous decisions. And that wasn't, as Kevin said, wasn't the easiest time because we were in shrinking, not just the finances, but in order to accomplish the shrinking finances from the failed levy, shrinking staff, shrinking buildings, lots of things were shrinking. But what really made me so proud of this community and of the board and the staff, faculty and staff here, was that we were not just shrinking, we were growing as we went. We were looking at being so innovative, and that was really important to the community and to the board. And so sitting around the room talking about how will we continue to grow? How will we continue to take bold steps? And so in a time where we were trying to figure out what we needed to do, developing a new strategic plan and hiring an innovative learning officer. Not many districts had that kind of role and the support of everyone to accomplish that. But it was such fun to sit around and strategize with Dick Gardner and Tracy about the exact moment you talked about, the 20, when the levy was going to come off. It was exciting to think about and to know that was coming. So a lot of great moments and great memories here. So I just appreciate the opportunity to serve and to work alongside so many great people. So thank you.
Before he takes the mic, I have to just correct the record because I know he's too humble to do it himself, but 10 years on the board.
I knew, yeah.
Tried to shave 20% off my tenure.
Yeah.
No, appreciate that, Charles. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I promise I'll try not to take too long, but I appreciate this moment to pause and reflect on what is happening now. And I really appreciate the perspective on it because I want to make sure that we all just appreciate the fact that we're not celebrating this because we paid off debt. Like, we didn't make these decisions so that one day we could say we paid off debt and then we're just done with it. We made that decision We made decisions along the way to be able to pay off this debt early, to be able to strategically partner with our community and be good stewards of their dollars, not ask more than we absolutely needed from them to support the schools, and that's the magic of this. It's fantastic that it's happening early, but the fact, kind of to Gail's point, that along that planning, we've also just grown in leaps and bounds in our excellence and our approach to education is just an incredible moment, so I really appreciate the chance to reflect. As far as my favorite Mason moment, there are way too many. If I think about the things I'm most proud of about what we did during my tenure on the board, two big things stick out to me, and more, towards the second half of my tenure, but our investments in mental health and our investments in personalized learning and inclusive excellence. And inclusive excellence, we're only able to try and achieve personalized learning by knowing who our students are. And that starts with really listening to their stories and honoring their stories. And so I'm just really proud of that work. But as far as a moment, I think back to, Jonathan, you're talking about the time around the levy and the vote got delayed. In the middle of the pandemic. I don't think that we can reflect enough on all the things that this staff did in response to the pandemic. Immediately having to reinvent education in Mason on the fly, the amount of time, and the amount of time and effort and the attitude of every level of staff member in this district to do what needed to be done to make sure that kids were fed because they weren't in our buildings, that they're educated so that their skills stayed up and their education continued. And to connect with every student throughout that was just unbelievable. And if I think about it truly as a moment, I think that all of that culminates to, I think, probably my favorite, moment in the sense that it was in an afternoon was 2020 graduation, delivering caps and gowns in the buses. Because I just think about all the effort that went into creating those buses and designing those buses, our garage staff, our bus staff, our drivers, they were so excited to pour into that project and to be a part of it. And I was proud to go around town handing out diplomas with them. And then to see the community rally around that and appreciate the opportunity to be together in that moment, it was just incredible. And honestly is a pretty good illustration of what it means to be a part of this special community. So thank you for the chance to share it tonight.
I'd like to also add, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like to add to the final board member to make some mention tonight of their experience, that we've had some wonderful personalities on the board, but I don't know of any that served with any bigger heart than you have. We have some who've served with a lot of heart, but your personality showed through, and the board was better for it. Thank you.
I was going to say, I'm going to, Dave mentioned we get down in the business of administrators every once in a while, so I'm going to make a move here. I know he invited up board members and administrators, but Casey, Lena, Matt, Mary, anybody else want to make a comment? You're certainly welcome to.
I don't think I need the speaker thing.
No, you will for it to be streamed. So please come down, Mary. We'd love that.
Yes, we don't want to miss a word, Mary.
I speak for the dead.
When I saw the ad really it was an article in the Enquirer shortly after we moved here about the treasurer of Mason Schools going back to his hometown. Dick was reading he was reading the comics. And I turned to him and I said, "Hey, here's your new job." Now, I had pushed him into the job as treasurer of Cincinnati Schools because I was so tired of listening to him complain about his job before that. But anyway, he said, "No, I have a job." And I said, "Yeah, but this one's here and it's for you." And he said, "No, it's too small. They can't afford me." And he maintained that until one day Connie called me and she said, what will it take to, Mary Ann called me and said, what will it take to get Dick to take this job? And I said, more money. And she said, well, that's no problem. Never in my life have I ever heard anything concerning Dick say money wasn't a problem. And so he ended up here, and he honestly thought he'd arrived in Camelot. He said many, many times, Mason is Camelot. It's the perfect place to be. And you all made him so happy, and he was so fulfilled. And I can't thank you enough for that. I think my favorite moment, because I wasn't really that involved, Dick really wanted to keep home life home and work life at the schools. But I got a couple of calls from my kids who had kids in the schools here. Mom, I just picked so-and-so up from school, and Dad's on the street corner, and he's dancing to a boombox with a sign. And I said, no. Now, Dick didn't dance. He struggled with the box step if we had to dance someplace, but he was not a dancer. Dick also was a very shy person when I first met him, and I've never known a shy day in my life. He used to get really upset with me when we were standing in line for tickets or something at the movie theater, and I'd turn around and join the conversation behind me. You don't know them. I said, no, but I know what they're talking about, you know. But the thought of Dick out there dancing with joy and without embarrassment to try to promote passing the levy was a real breakthrough moment for me. It really told me how much he really loved working for Mason, loved the schools, and felt safe and happy here. The last thing he wanted to do was not work here. He loved everybody here. He appreciated you, and I do too. You made his last years so comforting and welcoming. I can't tell you how much it meant to me to see him so appreciated, and how much it means to me to see him still appreciated 3 years after his death. You're still speaking kindly of him and remembering things about him. That means, I can't tell you, that means so much, and I thank you very much. And I think my daughter wants to talk too, because she's not shy either.
Thank you, Mary.
No.
Can I add to the story a little bit?
Sure.
I would say it's one of the Mason moments for me also. My first experience was a 2010 levy, and as a levy chair, having an administrator stand on the corner who you knew was, as she described, shy. Not only was he dancing on the corner, but it was his car that had the big speakers in the back playing music in TR6. So it was just an awesome thing to see from someone who'd only been a parent until that point. To see that was
Yes,
kind of
and he was shy, and he was also dignified. He came out on a street corner with a sign to a boombox. Blew my mind.
I could respect anyone who wants to keep their business life and their personal life separate, but I have to tell you, Dick Gardner may have succeeded in your perspective, but he was family to us. We always felt like he was at home when he was here with us. Thank you for the memories. Jonathan, do you have any other parts, surprises to your presentation?
Nothing to add to that.
Matt,
no.
Casey, Lena, anything? It's not an obligation, but we don't want you to feel, you know.
You're welcome. We'd love to hear. No?
No, but thank you, everyone, for contributing to this moment that we wanted to press pause, take a little extra time to recognize everyone that's come before us to set us up for this momentum today. So thank you all for being here. It's really special to us. All of you. Thanks.
Anyone on the board have comments before we move on?
I'm not following that.
No.
It's a fact to follow, I agree.
Well, we thank you for coming, and there are a few notables who aren't here. We did get some letters. Of course, Kevin was a big part of the architecture, and Eric, as you mentioned. Russ Carter, who I replaced, left some big shoes to fill, and I still feel that way. So we know that we're able to have the latitude we have today because of that work that you all did. And so I thank the administration for allowing us to have this moment, and each of you for being here. And those who aren't here, if you're watching, we thank each of you as well. So, yeah.
I think we should also acknowledge, well, Glenn Knight, of course, as well, but John Odell and Debbie Dell.
Right.
We lost while they were serving.
Yeah. So if you couldn't hear, Mary Ann just said, of course, Glenn Knight served on the board for quite a while, and he was right there, I think, with Dick on forecasting and played a key role in those days. And then, of course, Debbie Delp, who passed away, and John Odell, who passed away, and both of them leaving their footprint as well. And thanks for adding that.
We have a small token of our appreciation for you being here tonight. And Tracy, I'm certain that she wants to capture the moment on film or digitally.
All right. Come up for a picture. That's a straight talk.
You want to give it after we take the picture?
Yeah.
We'll take just one nice picture.
Let's do that.
Picture first?
Well done.
Let's get everybody together. Now when the kids do this, they quickly know how. We're gonna have our taller folks come to the back, and then some people move up, so we have a couple of rows. We need like 2 rows.
Taller in the back, you mean? Taller in the back.
And then find the window.
Good time. There we go. Somebody's 20
That will work. Yeah, I actually see it. All right, 1, 2. Perfect.
Don't leave without your back. Yes.
You may have said Charles did the I asked for the camera. We must have done this. You should have seen the pile around him tonight. His separation. Well, there was a lot of worry, but he did a good job.
How are you?
It wasn't easy years.
You won't be offended if Yes, all right. See you, Kevin.
Courtney.
Thank you.
Tracy.
I guess the rest is good job.
See ya. It'd be awesome if they stick around.
Thank you for being here tonight.
And this is why.
I have some things I'd like to do.
See you, Matt.
That's typically our
I got it.
pause for folks to leave, so that worked out nicely.
You'll notice they didn't wait for us to excuse them.
They know the rules. Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. That was a
Thank you, that was great.
nice presentation, nice capture of history. Next on our agenda is the hearing of the public, but I don't believe we have anyone tonight that has requested to speak to the board.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution with tax rates and a discussion of amounts for 2020, as well as,
2022.
I'm sorry? Oh, that's 8, yeah. No, that's 7A, just one by itself. So I need a motion for item 7, please.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Sean, would you like to kind of lead off with the,
So this resolution is something we do each year at the March meeting. This is kind of a continuation of the process for collecting taxes for next year. So it starts with the tax budget hearing in January, and it finishes with this process. And in between that, we have the tax budget hearing with the county. I could have asked Matt to explain from his vantage point if he was still here, but basically this is part of our compliance with Ohio budgetary laws and allows us to collect our property taxes.
yeah, we let him out a little early, didn't we? Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Item 8 is administrative personnel. We have a retirement, one of note. I need a motion, please.
So moved? Second?
Well, Todd, I'll let you,
I think Jonathan next.
Jonathan, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, this is George Heifeld. George is, as Todd would mention, is the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time. He has been a staple here. He probably could tell more stories than we even heard this evening about the district. So George is getting ready to retire on the 30th of December, so we want to wish him the very best, and we'll have plenty of time to do that. He's served here as a ground supervisor for 25 years. He's been a football coach for a number of years. His kids have graduated from here. He graduated from here. So every once in a while, we have someone that has just given their life to the district, and George would be an example of that. Man of integrity, someone who's one of the hardest working people we know, and I know that Todd would like him to stay on longer, but this is the right time for him to take off and do the next thing in his life. So
I told him Tom Brady returned, he needs it.
It's
He
not
said,
too late to
"Not a
retract,
chance.
right?"
I already have my condo set up for 3 months in Florida.
So we're happy for George.
Yeah, we certainly are. George was my son's first football coach.
Oh, wow.
And he has a very rich, he's originally from Mason,
Yeah,
his family, and just a great guy.
yes.
Anyone else have any comments?
I will add my thanks, because George is another one of those guys who's kind of dealt with the boring to make all of us enjoy all the things that this district provides. So, when we're sleeping in because it's going to be a snow day, he's up, and whether there's been a water damage, in addition to anything that is just the base part of his leadership around here, always confident to know that he was in on it, and they would figure out a path to get things done, and more times than you can count. And the folks that were here before could tell more than I, but for a minute you think school's not going to be able to open, and then we open. And so many thanks to him and his team. He's had a lot of teams over the years, and his legacy in Mason is firmly ensconced. So we appreciate everything and wish him all the best in Florida. So.
Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
I hate to do it, but yes.
Ms.
That's
Batchy?
him.
Yes.
Yeah.
5-0.
Okay, next up is item 9, non-district funded positions. I need a motion, please.
So moved?
Second?
Any comments, discussion?
Not at this time.
Seeing none. Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Can I make one comment out of line?
Sure.
To see James Gow come back to volunteer for the speech and debate is,
Yeah.
it makes me want to get on Ticketmaster and get some tickets to that, because he's going to do a great job. Thanks to James for doing that, so.
Good point. Thank you. Next is item 10, certified personnel, superintendent's recommendation, leaves of absence, resignations, retirements, appointments. I need a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Any comments, discussion?
Yeah, I just want to always recognize those that are retiring from our district. Again, these are just wonderful folks that have given their time, their energy, their talents to us. So Mary, Laura, Martha, we just wish them all the best as they move on and thank them for their service to our kids and making this a great place for kids. I also want to point out, if you go to the item E there, appointments, I think last time I mentioned, we have a record amount of substitute teachers pouring into the district. We did some strategic moves that the board supported. You heard that earlier today, that our success is tied back to the board support and some of the innovative ideas, and those are continuing to pour in. So we're grateful that we have lots of subs coming in. And if you're out there and you want to sub here, keep coming. It's a great place to be.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Sean, call the roll.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Next up, item 11, supplemental personnel, superintendent's recommendations, no appointments. I need a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Comments? Seeing none, please call the roll, Sean.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
5-0.
Item 12, resolution for hiring non-certified personnel, superintendent's recommendations. I need a motion, please,
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Is that time for a lot of supplemental coaching assignments, right?
It's spring, and sports are off and running quick, fast and furious. So we thank all of those coaches for stepping up and doing that.
Absolutely. Next item should be 13. I don't see it on
Need
my
a roll-
page.
roll call on it.
There it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Any other discussion on 12? No. Seeing none. Sean?
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Next, item 13, classified personnel superintendent's recommendations. I need a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Another retirement. Those are always bittersweet.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
No, just wish them the best on their retirement. And then I would also just mention really quickly and draw your attention to one other piece on here under item D. We have something new. You know, we have experiential learning, and experiential learning continues to evolve. And in this case, we had a need, and the need was we needed more video in the district for a variety of things. We have kids that are really talented in this. We want them to pursue their personal pathways and journeys, and so we put a ad out there for students. They went through this experiential learning process, interview, then they interviewed with us. We put them through a full interview process where they had performance task and all kinds of things, just like they would in our teachers. Very similar rigor. And these are the 3 students that came. Actually, we were looking for one. All 3 were so good that we built a team. And so this is a team of students that are now helping us with video around the district. And so, yeah, so if you see video starting to come out, that's usually them that are working behind the scenes to help us out there. So anyways, just like to highlight when our students are doing great things and now working with us to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none. Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
5-0.
Next is item 14, certified personnel, additional duties. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And comments?
Yeah, this just continues to highlight the work that's going on around the district. There's a couple things here just to point out. Some of the things we talked about last time with Latera and having additional supports for our students and replacing 3 staff members that are no longer able to do that, and then new people coming on to fulfill those needs. And then also, want to thank, we also, one thing I just point out to you, we talk about high standards here, and the state likes to test and do all these things, and they don't think that maybe locally we're able to hold ourselves accountable to some of the things, but we believe in accountability big time. And so this is another example of the work that Amy and her team have been doing about building checks in place to make sure that we're actually on track with our students. And that's something that we've done locally, and it's built with our teachers' expertise. So thanks to their work, and also just want to highlight that's what's happening here with the checkpoints.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none. Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Next up is item 15, classified personnel additional duties. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Next is item 16. These are superintendent's action items. I need a motion.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Jonathan, I think you have a couple of highlights you'd like to make.
Yeah, let me just run down the list here. So item A here is a property agreement. Basically, there are some folks we work with that are neighbors who need to drive through some of our land, and so we have come up with an agreement there over the last few years where we allow them to use that as a pass-through, and so that shows up on this first property agreement. You also see Hamilton County ESC. We have specialists there. This is a change in service because a person left the position, so we're continuing the service, so nothing new, just a replacement of that. Item C, Orton Gillingham training. I will just remind you, last time I mentioned in our legislative update that the dyslexia bill does cause districts across the state to add additional training, add additional systems, support, data, programming, and that's all with that bill. So this is an example of, now I will mention that this is something we were already doing, but we weren't going to do it to the full extent that they're requiring us to do, where all teachers have 18 hours of this training. So the good thing is, again, we had good systems in place and we're doing great things. This Orton Gillingham is something we've worked even with our families on to provide that service. But this will come up again. So just I'll remind us of that as time goes on. The next one is a mowing agreement. Believe it or not, we got to keep the grounds and mow the place here. And so the folks that were doing that before are no longer doing that business. And so we are looking for new, and so we were able to find some people that already mow and work for us are going to add to their contract to mow our other properties. And then Todd and his crew do a great job, and we mentioned it earlier with George, when things blow up and don't do well and we have floods, and he does all of that work, well, we have to also rebuild things around the district and keep them up. So this is a boiler rebuild and a chiller rebuild. And so those are on a cycle that Todd has put together with his team, and we continue to do those systematically so that we can keep our heat and cooling running for these large buildings. And then finally, the Mason Middle School, that's actually the scoreboard that's right there, the main one at our football field. Believe it or not, the scoreboard that we've had there for over 20 years, and it's now outdated itself so much that they don't have it. It's the only one of its kind in the country right now, and so they don't make parts for that one because even though they love us, they don't just specialize for just Mason. So we are looking to put a new scoreboard on that and to update that and bring that into kind of current. We actually have a cycle of updating all of our facilities. Scoreboards are part of that cycle. This is the final scoreboard to be updated in the district. All the other ones have been updated up to this point. And so this is just an item to say we want to go out and bid this. And so that's what we are voting on tonight, is just for us to say we need people to bid on this item and give us some bids. So those are the recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And Todd, thank you as part of the facilities committee pulling that all together for us this week. Any other comments or Questions?
Should just note the scoreboard was also invited to participate tonight, but had a prior obligation, couldn't make it, so part of the long history of long-term planning here as well.
I was stuck, yes.
That would have been interesting.
So, I actually had a chance to hear Chrissy Huffnagel this week talk about the dyslexia law, and, you know, obviously we want our students that do struggle through and break through with dyslexia to receive the attention and care that they need, and we were on our way to doing that, but the law is requiring us to incur additional cost, and with a undefined benefit. So for those that may be watching, and I know the people in this room right now know, you know, unfunded mandates create budgetary issues, right? So we have to figure out how to pay for the training, how to pay for the screener. And so while we are fortunate in Mason where we may be able to take on those costs, there are others that cannot. And we were servicing our students with dyslexia with defined benefit. So wanted to touch on that. And then for the bid on the scoreboard, all jokes aside, as someone who works in insurance and does these sorts of things, you know, you don't want to hang on to things past their useful life, especially in this moment, because supply chain issues, it will cost us more to try to find parts to replace this thing than it's worth. It has outlived its life, and so we thank it for its service, but you know, I'm sure Todd will do a great job in getting the bids, but.
Drop this off on your way out.
I've never seen a
shelf installed tomorrow to put up there.
Never seen a scoreboard so personified before.
Right. So you know, as I know there may be those listening to say, a scoreboard, come on, what's that got to do? Nope, it's actually about good stewardship. So, Todd, thank you for making sure that we're on top of all this.
I'd have to give Scott Stemple the credit for that. He really did a nice job on this, working with Sean and I.
Excellent, thank you, all good information. So we'll expect to see that again after bids come back. Next item is 17, and that's the treasurer's report.
We got to
Vote on that one?
We did not.
Yeah, I think we got to call the roll.
Yeah, we got to call the roll on that one.
Sorry. You're right, I get so involved in the discussion after. But yes, please call the roll, Sean.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
5-0.
Now we'll do item 17, and I'll take a motion, please,
So moved.
in a second,
Second.
and then I'll hand it to Sean to elaborate on what we're looking at.
Yeah, just item B, we can look at some of the donations in there, and in particular this month we have some donations from the MECC PTO and also the Mason Elementary PTO donating to different programs and initiatives at the buildings, and not just those donations, there are others as well. Those are just a couple that I chose to highlight. There's also a donation from the GE Foundation. That's actually some people who volunteer and do work, and then they work for GE, and then they have matching donations that usually those happen to go to Common Covered. So again, just appreciate those donations that help us fund and work with our kids and families.
Absolutely. And again, Sean, thank you for your work. I pointed it out at our last public meeting, but also tonight, the presentation that we gave tonight, the financial history of that. Dick Gardner was here for most of that planning and the initiation, but thank you for picking that up, sticking with it, and making sure that we stay informed, and most importantly, the community stays informed and well aware of what we're doing with our money, their money.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the treasurer's report? I need Sean, please call the roll to accept the treasurer's report.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
And tonight, we have committee reports as item 18. We have Arts and Activities Council.
I can give an update on that one. We approved a new club, Operation Smile, which helps children who are born with cleft palates around the world. They're raising awareness and funds for that. So that's a new opportunity at the high school. And then also approved a trip for our HOSA team that they qualified for, that they'll be doing in Nashville in June. No school missed, but an exciting opportunity for them to go compete against peers all over the country.
Thank you. And let's see, Business Advisory Council?
Yeah, Sean and I were able to be a part of that. I think Amy and Tracy as well. But that we engaged our business partners. They're always such a great voice in helping us think through strategy that we want to put in place. So one of the things we engaged them on a little bit was how do we engage our community in 2030 vision work? And so they were able to give us some feedback on their thoughts on how that is and the messaging and the ways that we do that, and some of the things that have worked for them in the past. And then also we were able to talk a little bit about just the history of coming up to this point, and what is that, how has that set us up for success, and then how do we continue to communicate those messages to our community? So when things like tonight happen, how does that message get out to our community so that they're hearing over and over? So not just hearing from us during a levy season, but just all the time, and just how we're being good stewards and how we're trying to honor our community and how this is their school. And so they give us great feedback, and always appreciate our business partnerships. Thanks.
Do you have any comments on that?
John, I think that
How often does that committee meet? Remind me.
It's a quarterly committee unless there are things that are coming up that are project-based that we need them to meet more often. So if it's getting more feedback on our finances, we'll have them more often, or like experiential learning, we call it a special meeting to get their insights to how to run that better.
That's what I thought. I wasn't quite sure of it. Next up is the Facilities Committee. Todd?
We actually discussed those items that are on the agenda tonight. I do want to point out many of those items, the scoreboard, the boiler, the rebuild of the chiller, all of those are budgeted items. So, I've been here 6 years now, and one of the main things that was asked when I started was to build a budget. And the board supported a budget that meets the needs of our facilities so that we can maintain what we have. And it's nice to be able to do those and know that we're going to be able to get that taken care of.
I've just had this epiphany about the scoreboard, and when you were talking about it, I was just I remember when we put that scoreboard up and someone came to the podium and said, "This is the only scoreboard like this in the United States of America."
And now it's the last one.
And now we're ending its life. Again, it's the only scoreboard left like it in the United States of America.
George took care of it so well.
Every
it's
day.
Still out there.
I know.
It's the only one left.
I can't think of who that was, but I guarantee you they're not watching. But but there might be someone watching that remembers those days. It was like, yeah, I kind of remember that too. We took some heat for that. Yeah, so it's nice to mark that moment too.
Yeah. I just wondered if Charles wants to name it.
Does it have a Twitter handle or anything?
It might after tonight, yeah.
The galvanized scoreboard. Okay, next up is the Mason Schools Foundation.
Yeah, so Mason Schools Foundation, they do meet on a monthly basis or more often as needed in their committees, but they continue to do great work. So we were able to get some highlights for grant updates and some of the things that they're doing. So for example, voting on some refresh for the language lab, discussions about next steps for big ideas for the foundation and what they could fund. We shared some of those ideas with them. The foundation came to meet with a few of us to say, what are some big things the district's thinking about? Which I love that about the foundation is they'll lean in, they'll ask, they'll pick our brains, they'll take those ideas. And then what it does is they go think about them, and then when they see opportunities, they bring those back and say, I heard you say, what about this? How could this enhance and be a catalyst for some of the work you're doing? And some of those are really, really just very thoughtful moments that maybe we didn't pick up on that they're bringing back to us. And so we discussed some of those opportunities. Also discussed the 2022 Above and Beyond Teachers process and recognizing them. And then there were some individual committee updates for the Reading Challenge and how great that's gone, and also some of the gala updates for ideas for the next year and tossing that around, whether that's going to be a year to year and every other year. And so some of that discussion is going on as well.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, next is Policy Committee.
Yeah, so the policy committee meets on, we try to meet on a quarterly basis. Sometimes that gets to every 3 times a year, depending on what updates are there. It's a lengthy process. Someone mentioned today, the boring things are the things that just keep us moving forward, and it's one of those things that's maybe not really attractive because you're going through lots and lots of policy. But our process continues to help us to find and refine ideas, and so we get updates on a quarterly basis. We take those through a process with our team. Each person on our team goes through a piece of the policy. Then we make recommendations. We change those. We might go and talk to our attorney about those, change some pieces, and then we bring it to our board committee with our board members on that committee, and we go through that process. And then we have a time of that we can share with the board. So you'll be getting we're updating the links, but you'll be getting the thoughts from our team committee soon, if not this week, so that you can look through, ask questions, and then it comes to the board next month during the regular session for a first reading. And then that sits out for a month, and then it goes to second reading, then we vote on those. So that's what we went through this time. Nothing huge and ground shattering, but there's about 116 pages of things that we went through this time, and recommendations, that is.
Committee's a lot of work, but it's very well worth it.
It keeps us up to date, which is really important, and it keeps us in alignment with the law, which if you don't have that process in place, it'd be really easy to start getting behind on your policy and then all of a sudden be out of compliance really quickly.
Kevin or Jonathan?
I was going to say thanks to Jonathan and your team for, I know a couple of years ago when you first had the first go-round with policy committee and that initial undertaking of really combing through and kind of finding some, I guess, redundancies in some places and some outdated things has really made the subsequent reviews of policy and implementation of recommendations run smoothly and been, to all our benefits as a district. So we appreciate the work you all do on that, and we know you guys are plugged into that stuff.
Okay, and I believe last is Student Achievement Committee.
Sure. So Student Achievement Committee met last Friday at MECC. It was really a focus on our English Language Arts Instructional Resource Review, which we're going through that process throughout the school year. So we had an opportunity to, for our learning experience supervisors, Chrissy Huffnagel and Shauna Buemiller, to share some early drafts of resources that teams of teachers have been creating as a resource to teachers when they're using supplementary resources. So one of the things that's it happens in all classes, but perhaps especially in an English Language Arts class, is that we have some board-approved texts, which might be a whole class novel, but then we have other resources where students may be choosing a book for a unit might be reading about memoirs, and there's some level of choice there. And so teachers have been working as we think about how do we support them in communicating with families about those choices and in selecting and helping students to make good selections, developing some resources. Teachers already often have tools that they use to communicate with families about a unit that might be coming up or that sort of thing. But we have teacher teams that are creating some more standardized processes and resources for doing that. So our committee was able to look at and give some feedback on some early drafts of those resources, as well as the tools that the teachers have been developing to evaluate those resources as a support to them. We also then had some early literacy updates, elementary. So as Mr. Orr mentioned, Chrissy Huffnagel gave some updates on the dyslexia legislation or bill and what that has meant for us and where it stands. We are still waiting on the final guidebook from the state to be able to make some of those final decisions. We are anticipating it in December, and we hear it's coming, should be coming by the end of this month, hopefully. And then we do anticipate, as we've been going through our English Language Arts Review, to continue a long-standing commitment to reading and writing workshop as our instructional method in our K through 5 classrooms. So we heard a little bit about the history of reading and writing workshop in Mason City Schools, a long-standing investment in teacher learning. That's really a hallmark of the program. learned a little bit about it, and then got to go see it in action in some classrooms and come back and sort of share observations and wonders or questions that people are curious about as we continue to move forward with that.
It was really neat to see, as we transition away from some of the pandemic-related educational practices, we've learned, right, things that have worked. And so the iterations of the reading and writing workshops that went digital. And so, we were able to visit classrooms where they had put the content online, where they had, through COVID, created the slideshows so that the students could keep up. And it was sort of a great reference point to see the classroom where it was up and they were working and they could reference it, go back to it, engage with it on their own terms, but still complete their work. So it really gave the group an opportunity to reflect on, wanting to make sure that we capture those things that worked really well in the pandemic from an educational practice standpoint, to pull those forward and make sure that we continue to incorporate them in our learning. So that was really exciting to see that was a practice that we held on to because it was beneficial to the students.
Thank you both.
Can I would just add one thing there, build on what Ian said earlier about the mandate. The real onerous parts of these mandates are that the legislature goes through rounds and rounds and rounds of conversation about the language in this legislation. But much of that language actually says this, and this will be required, and the process will be defined by the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a disconnect between that legislative body that we should all respect and recognize that they're elected officials and there's ways to change it and so forth, over to where, it becomes an administrative obligation that no one really knows how to change. And although there might be changes that come, I think we're talking about something on the order of 10,000 hours of training required for our teachers. Maybe I'm a little high on that, but it's over 5 and it may be up to 10. That's a big commitment on top of what we're already doing. And so that's why we take the moment. It's not to really complain. It's just to point out to our community that engagement in the process, elections, understanding civics, those are all things that we all have to be better at so that we don't allow these things to kind of grow. There's not bad people in the Department of Education. They're just doing their job. But we as a society allow these organizations to develop and grow, and then we end up, the recipient back at the taxpayer level, having to figure out how to fund it. So couldn't leave that opportunity unsaid. So
Also lost instructional time because you got to screen them.
That's right.
Jonathan, does it help us at all that we already have some of that program in our district before this mandate?
What will help us is we have programs and processes in place that are already good practice. So for example, we already have an assessment program in place for accountability called MAP. And so that's already in place. So when we're waiting right now, literally waiting to hear what they're going to approve as the screener, it may be an extension to the MAP. So we were familiar with the program, but there could be additional costs that are added to that in additional training and time. And to your point, that pulls our teachers, that pulls away from our instruction. So what would be better before they do this one-size-fits-all legislation and put these pieces, and I understand they have people there that are very passionate around dyslexia, and we are too. But it's not a one-size-fits-all, and so that's where this gets really wonky in our district and other districts, because it starts to cause a financial burden and time burden and resource burden that's just not necessary, when they could just be more strategic about how they implement that. So to answer your question, yes, we have systems in a good place, so that will set us up, but there's so much more that we'll have to add.
Thank you. Interesting. Okay, next up is legislative update.
Take it away.
Yeah, so I'll just run through just some of the high-level ones right now that we're watching. One, we've mentioned quite a bit today, the House Bill 436 and how that gets implemented. Some of the things that we're trying to help, and we have some people that we're specifically working with in Columbus, is looking again at that 18 hours and just kind of coming back to, is that required for everyone, when, how can we think that through carefully? Because there's some different layers to that. We're also looking at the implementation timelines and trying to press back on that just a little bit, because there's some timelines there that are tough, since we haven't even had approval of some of the things that are necessary to implement. So we'll see if our advocacy works at the state level. There's Senate Bill 1, you've heard financial literacy. There's still a little bit of tweaking with that one going on right now. That's Senator Wilson's Senate Bill Financial Lit. We actually have Financial Lit in place, so that works for us, but they're trying to make some more flexibility around who can and can't teach some of that, and could there be dual credits possibly? Could you get two different, and there's a lot of work around that and some thinking to go into that, but that's taking place right now. There's a report card talk out there, because they're going to update the report card for the state, so they've gone to a star system rather than an alphabet system. Used to be, the ABC. Now it's going to be a star system. And
Like 5-star, like Amazon.
It's exactly right. Yeah. It's an Amazon system. It's a 5-star. Everybody's familiar with that. There will be half stars.
4.8.
The concern that we have there that we're watching closely is with this, and they updated this, they just established a bunch of cut score numbers, and when you see the cut scores they established, and they put some rules around that, that could get pretty messy across the state when they roll this out, and that could cause resources going into like communication and trying to help our families. So there's anytime the state starts to do these kind of things, report card stuff, it's going to get messy pretty quickly. So just put that on your radar, and I believe that's House Bill 82 that's starting to work through there. Let's see if any other ones are. The House Bill 290 is also one that we continue to work through, because that's the statewide voucher system. The voucher system, again, the biggest concern we have is that there's just different standards placed on, and we have nothing. Again, we have great partners in our private schools. We have, and we continue to, but when they have different standards for the two, that gets really tricky. They need to reevaluate that. You can't just have one standard for public school and then different standards for private schools. It could start leading to some discrepancies, and it's just not. It could have some unintended consequences that would not be healthy for communities, and so that's something that we'll continue to work with our state legislators on as well. There's several others, but I'll stop there for now, and I'm sure I can update you on some more the next time we see each other.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Did you have any?
He's touched on it all.
Very good. Okay, up next, item 20, administrator commentary. Tracy?
So many good things tonight, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to, on behalf of our team, congratulate Dr. Jonathan Cooper. Yes, successfully defended his dissertation last week. And, Dr. Cooper, doctorate or not, just exemplifies the concept of lead learner for our team and our district, whether it's tweeting his runner's reflections or sharing in our weekly email to administrators reflections on what he's been reading, or starting off with time for us to read and discuss together, just creating that open atmosphere. And so we're so proud of him. We knew he was Dr. Cooper for, in our hearts he was, but to accomplish that, and having walked down that road myself in recent history, also knowing what's required of that, to have done that while being what I would argue the most engaged superintendent around, dad to 4, basketball coach. I mean, the list would go on and on. It's just truly remarkable. So we're really proud of Dr. Cooper, and want to just, on behalf of our team, take a moment to celebrate him.
Thank you for sharing that important piece of news with everyone. Tanya? Nothing? Nothing. Christine? No?
Nothing tonight.
We have a
Thanks,
quiet group.
Dr. Brandon, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. The only thing I'll say is, we talked a lot about Mason quality today, and we talked about the beautiful planning and leadership, and I just want to mention, it's all about the people, and it's the people here. And you heard Courtney talking about just trusting her teachers with her kids, and seeing Maria up here just representing our teachers and our staff, and just thanking all of them. Maria, for your leadership, for our teachers, because that is, when we talk about Mason quality, at the end of the day, it's the people. And so I'm just so appreciative of all the people and my team, and just thank you for your support.
Okay. Next, we'll have board commentary. Kevin, you'll start.
Well, so I guess there's Dr. J, Dr. Cooper, Dr. Brennan, Dr. James Naismith. You're in good company. They're in good company. And we hope that you remain Jonathan. So, but congrats on that. And thanks again for the staff to kind of indulge us a little bit here to mark that moment today. And, you know, it's easy. Time just flies by. So it was nice to have some of the past board members and administrators and community people here to mark that. So thanks for allowing us to do that. That's it.
Mr. Ray?
Well, congrats. That is, I knew he was in the process. I didn't realize it was completed, so that is amazing news. And yeah, all that's on your plate for you to have time to accomplish such an amazing feat is very remarkable. Thanks, Kevin, for organizing tonight and recognizing the faces of the past. That was really special for me, being, you know, fairly new to the board, and they were familiar, you know, from the past, but it was really a cool thing to hear from them and the stories. That was special for me. And we've heard a lot of people speak tonight, so that's all I'm going to say.
Charles?
Well, I will echo the congrats to Dr. Cooper. We'll also amplify that and I know, you know, your family probably watches this on the live stream at home every couple weeks, so we'll send the congrats to the Cooper household as well. You know, of all the times in history to pick to, you know, finish up a PhD, you know, what better time than the last couple of years, and in educational leadership in particular. Very, very proud on behalf of, you know, everybody up here that you know, we could watch you through that process, and that we get to benefit from your leadership throughout that process. I was happy to return to the Harvard room earlier today and the Kiva earlier today, thanks to Mrs. Miller, the AP Politics class, I think is what it was, government, okay, and getting to see the return of the sort of hypothetical presidential candidates project is always fun. Hopefully be invited back again. I don't know, that might be up in the air after a little bit like a Senate judiciary kind of feel to the judges we had on the panel today. So the kids did an outstanding job, and it was always, you know, it's always entertaining and always fun for us to participate in that. Want to, it's been a while, but at the beginning of this month, I think this was the first time since February, I want to acknowledge and thank our diversity committee and everybody who volunteered for putting on the Taste of Mason at the beginning of the month. I think it was March 2nd. And great to see that event back, you know, at full swing in person, and all of the, you know, new and old traditions to that event. Excited to have everybody back in the community for that. And then also wanted to acknowledge and congratulate our girls state runner-up basketball team, getting to go up to Dayton. I don't know what the process was for Dayton hosting the Final Four and the championship, but I'm glad that we made it that far this year, because it was really cool and particularly convenient to be able to just, you know, jump on 75 and get up there real quick. Really, really neat to see our community come together and pack the stands up at UD Arena. Very proud of our girls, and just so neat to see them go as far as they did, and we're excited to see what they come back with next year. And we also wish our lone senior, Kyla Oldacre, best luck in her future endeavors going to the U and representing Comet Country when she goes off to Florida. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ian, up next.
There's a show called Hanging with Mr. Cooper. So when you and I hang out, it'll be Hanging with Dr. Cooper. That's right. Got it. Congratulations, sir. That's, I mean, Amy said it all. Lead learner, right? So, you know, never wanting to stop growing, learning how to lead, right? That's an evolving process. And so for you to commit yourself to that and be that example at the top of the organizational chart is phenomenal. So thank you for setting that example, not only for the staff, but for the kids, right? So thank you. Tonight was really cool. So thank you for setting up that. And I wanted to explicitly thank you because I think you might have gotten lost in the shuffle, Madam President, for your 22 years of service. And so thank you. As a new board member, having you at the helm to learn from and talk to has been a great resource. And so you've had your fingerprints on a lot of what was said tonight. So thank you. Cool stuff going on in our buildings and in our community. Moana hit mock trial, made it to the state qualifier, and had a couple of great, outstanding witnesses and outstanding attorneys. Miss Middle School, Power of the Pen, award-winning. We've got a student. Here's what's cool. How many of you guys watched the spelling bee? Yeah. Right? We got a student that qualified out of the middle school to go up to the national spelling bee. They won the region, and so, we'll have a dog in the fight, as they say, when it comes time to do the Scripps Howard spelling bee in Washington, D.C. But, I mean, outside of all the cool stuff that kids are doing, hey, kids, thanks just for showing up, right? You don't have to be involved in a co-curricular, extracurricular. We see you. Thank you. It's hopefully the spring forward has got us getting a little more sunshine and we feel a little bit better. But, thank you for showing up and doing what you do every day. And that's why we're all here, is for you guys. So thank you guys for showing up, and we'll keep trying to manage this thing successfully so that you guys can have the opportunities to be the people you want to become. So that's all I got.
Very good. Congratulations, Dr. Cooper. Thanks. I knew you'd been working on that. Wasn't sure the timing of finishing, but that was a goal well-deserved and worthwhile. And I think of Carl Blaybon tonight as well, laying the foundation, setting the goal. Paid off, so worthwhile. And tonight, seeing some faces that I started here with, a couple of the names that actually were instrumental in me running for the board the first time, helping them and the team that was in place then set the goals. It is so important to see people achieve the goals that they set. That's how we make progress. Tonight was a personal reward for me, as well as a joy as a member of the district to watch and to see all of these new folks, so many new folks that have picked up the ball and they're running with it. So it was a pleasure to see that tonight, very rewarding. And I hope that our kids get that feel, that when you set goals and you achieve them, it's really cool. It's all worthwhile. It's so rewarding. So with that, I'll ask for a moment of adjournment. Or a motion of adjournment.
So moved.
You can do it in a moment, I don't know. In a second?
Yep.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.